She is cheating you." The waitress secretly exposed the billionaire's girlfriend what he did next. The sentence cut through the restaurant like a blade. Crystal glasses trembled. A violinist missed a note. The billionaire froze mid-motion, his fork hovering inches above a plate that cost more than most people's rent. Across from him, his girlfriend's phone screen went dark as her fingers stiffened, her smile collapsing into something brittle and wrong. No one else heard the words not clearly, but he did. And the way the waitress's eyes locked onto his, wide and urgent, told him this was not a mistake, not a joke, not a drunken whisper. This was a warning delivered at the precise second it could destroy everything. He didn't react. That was the first shock. Years of boardrooms, hostile takeovers, and bloodless victories had trained him well. He took a slow breath, set his fork down with deliberate care, and lifted his gaze past the candle flame, past the white linen to the woman who had just detonated his evening. The waitress stood near the mirrored wall, pretending to straighten a frame while holding up a sign meant for him alone. The letters were bold, impossible to misunderstand. "She is cheating you." Her hand trembled as she lowered it, eyes flicking toward his girlfriend. Then back to him. Fear, determination, and something else, guilt maybe. Or desperation. He smiled at his girlfriend. "Sorry," he said softly, voice smooth as polished stone. "I need to take this call." He lifted his phone blank screen, no caller, and rose. Chairs scraped. The girlfriend looked up, annoyance sharpening her features. "Now?" she asked, already irritated, already rehearsing a complaint. He leaned down, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "Business never waits." Her perfume lingered as he turned away. Sweet and suffocating. In the hallway outside the dining room, the billionaire paused. The restaurant's hum dulled behind the heavy door. He closed his eyes for half a second. Then he made a decision. He didn't confront her. He didn't confront the waitress. He watched. The waitress returned to her station, hard hammering so loudly she was sure someone could hear it. She had crossed a line that could cost her job, her safety, maybe worse. But she couldn't unsee what she'd seen. Couldn't forget the late nights, the whispered calls, the man who wasn't supposed to exist slipping into private rooms with practiced ease. She had tried to tell herself it wasn't her business. That rich people lived by different rules. That silence was safer. Until tonight. The billionaire didn't go to the restroom. He slipped into a private corridor reserved for staff and VIPs, a perk he paid for without ever expecting to use it like this. He stood in the shadows, back against cool marble, and waited. Through a narrow opening between doors, he could see the dining room reflected in a mirror, his table, his girlfriend. Her every movement magnified by gold, trim and candlelight. She picked up her phone. Her thumb moved fast. Too fast. He watched the angle of her wrist, the tilt of her head, the way her lips parted not for him, but for someone else. A message sent. Another received. Her eyes flicked toward the entrance, then back to the screen. She smiled. Not the public smile she wore for cameras and charity galas. A private one. Intimate. Hungry. The billionaire felt something shift in his chest, not rage yet. Not pain. Calculation. He pulled out his own phone and activated a feature he designed for hostile negotiations. Silent recording. Encrypted cloud backup, time-stamped and legally admissible. He didn't know yet what he was collecting. He only knew he would not rely on words. At the table, the girlfriend stood. She smoothed her red dress and waved down the hostess, leaning in close, whispering. The hostess nodded and gestured toward the rear corridor, toward him. The billionaire stepped deeper into shadow. A man appeared moments later, well-dressed, confident, entirely out of place for a chance encounter. He didn't see the billionaire. He saw only the woman who lit up when she noticed him. Their greeting was subtle. Too subtle. A brush of fingers. A shared glance. A choreography practiced in secrecy. They disappeared into a private room. The billionaire followed. He didn't burst in. He didn't knock. He stood outside the door and listened as laughter spilled through the crack, soft, conspiratorial. A voice he knew too well said his name, casually, dismissively, as if he were a detail already resolved. The man's reply was lower, amused. The sound of a kiss followed. The billionaire's hand tightened around his phone. Inside the private room. The girlfriend spoke words that would later replay in courtrooms, boardrooms, and headlines, but for now, they were just sound, just betrayal. She talked about timelines, about money, about how he'll never suspect, about a future that did not include the man she'd just been dining with under chandeliers. Outside, the waitress passed the corridor and froze when she saw him. Their eyes met. For a split second, she thought she'd doomed herself. He lifted a finger to his lips. She nodded. Breath shallow, and kept walking. The billionaire waited until the laughter faded. Until the door opened again and the man slipped out first. Adjusting his cufflinks, confidence intact. The billionaire stepped back into the shadows and let him pass. He captured the man's face, clear, unmistakable. Then the girlfriend emerged. She stopped short. "Why are you back here?" she asked, too quickly. He smiled again. The same smile from the table. Calm, controlled, deadly. "I forgot my jacket," he said. She glanced behind her, then at him. "We should go," she said. "People are watching." He leaned closer, voice low. "They always are." They returned to the table. The night resumed its performance. Wine poured. Courses arrived. Applause broke out for a birthday at another table. To anyone watching, the couple looked perfect wealth, beauty. Promise wrapped in linen and gold. The waitress served dessert with shaking hands. The billionaire thanked her. Quietly. With his eyes. When the bill arrived, he paid it without looking. He stood, offered his arm, and escorted his girlfriend out into the cool night air. Cameras flashed. She smiled for them, radiant and unafraid. He opened the car door. She slid inside. As the door closed, he spoke not to her, but to the driver. "Change of plans," he said. "We're going to the penthouse." The girlfriend looked at him, surprised. "I thought you had an early meeting." He met her gaze at last. "I do," he said. "And you're going to be there." The car pulled away. High above the city. In a glass-walled penthouse built to showcase power, the billionaire poured 2 drinks. He handed her one. She took it, relaxed now, confident again. She didn't see the cameras embedded in the art. Didn't hear the quiet hum of systems coming online. He raised his glass. "To honesty," he said. She laughed. "You're in a mood." He drank. Then he pressed a button. The walls lit up. Footage filled the room, timestamps, angles, mirrors. Her phone at the table. The private room. The kiss. The words she thought were safe in whispers. The man's face, frozen in high definition. The glass slipped from her fingers and shattered. The billionaire set his down carefully. "We're going to talk," he said, voice steady. "And after that, we're going to let the world listen." She opened her mouth. No sound came out. Asterisk silence filled the penthouse like pressure underwater. The city glittered outside the glass walls, oblivious to the collapse happening several floors above it. The billionaire didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke in merciless clarity. Looping on the screens, her words, her laughter. The way she said his name as if it were a minor inconvenience in a carefully optimized life. She sank onto the edge of the sofa, face drained of color. "You don't understand," she said at last, grasping for oxygen in a room that suddenly had none. "It's not what it looks like." He tilted his head slightly. It looks like planning, he replied. It sounds like intent. And it feels like betrayal. Her eyes darted to the screens, then back to him. You spy on me now? Is that what this is? The accusation came sharp, defensive a reflex. You set me up? No, he said calmly. You set yourself free. I just watched. She stood, pacing, hands trembling. You're never around. You live in meetings and planes and numbers. I was lonely. She stopped in front of him, desperation cracking her voice. He didn't mean anything. The billionaire tapped his phone. The screen changed. Another clip appeared, older, from weeks ago. The same man. A different room. The same intimacy. Loneliness, he said, usually doesn't require contracts. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the back of a chair. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I plan to leave. I wanted security. I didn't think you'd, she choked on the rest. You didn't think I'd notice. He finished. She looked up at him then, eyes shining with tears. Please, don't do this. We can fix it. He studied her as if seeing her for the first time, not as a partner. Not as an accessory to galas and headlines, but as a variable that had failed its test. There's nothing to fix, he said. Only consequences. Asterisk, she lunged for him. If you expose this, it'll ruin me. He didn't step back. You ruined yourself the moment you thought you were untouchable. Downstairs, the waitress ended her shift with shaking hands. She changed in the cramped staff room, heart still racing. She expected security to stop her, management to call her in, someone to accuse her of crossing a line. None of it happened. She walked into the night, unsure whether she just saved a man or destroyed her own future. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Thank you for telling the truth. She stared at the screen. Breath hitching. Asterisk, unknown number. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. Tomorrow. Noon. She typed back before fear could stop her. Okay. Back at the penthouse, the billionaire made a call. Not to lawyers, not yet. He called his chief of staff, a woman who'd been with him through hostile media storms and bloodless coups. I need a timeline, he said. Every appearance, every donation, every public commitment tied to her name. Freeze them. There was a pause. Understood, the chief said. Do you want to make a statement? Yes, he replied. But not tonight. He ended the call and turned back to his girlfriend, no, his fiancée, still wearing the ring he'd given her beneath a sky of drones and fireworks. She was crying now, mascara streaking, control finally gone. What about us? She asked. He walked to the window, looking down at the city. There was never an us, he said quietly. There was a brand. The next morning the story broke carefully, surgically. Not as scandal, but as revelation. Screenshots appeared. Timelines aligned. The man she'd been meeting was identified, an investment consultant with a history of cozying up to wealth through proximity. Analysts dissected the implications. Commentators speculated. The public watched, hungry and horrified, but the billionaire didn't give interviews. He went to lunch. The restaurant was quiet this time. No chandeliers, no violinists. Just a small cafe with sunlight pooling on wooden tables. The waitress sat across from him, hands folded tight around a cup she hadn't touched. I didn't know if you'd show, she said. I said I would, he replied. She nodded, swallowing. I didn't do it for money, I know. She looked up, surprised. I watched the footage, he continued. I saw your face when you held up the sign. That wasn't ambition. That was conscience. Her shoulders sagged, relief and fear tangling. I thought, if someone that powerful is being lied to, what chance do the rest of us have? He considered that. Power doesn't make you immune, he said. It just gives you a louder fall. She hesitated. Am I in trouble? No, he said. You're being promoted. Her eyes widened. What? I'm opening a foundation, he explained. Transparency, ethics, protection for whistleblowers in industries that pretend they don't need them. I need someone who understands the cost of speaking up. I'm just a waitress. You were, he said gently. Now you're a witness. Across the city, his former fiancée watched the news alone. Calls went unanswered. Sponsors vanished. Invitations dried up. The ring lay on the counter, heavy and useless. She replayed the moment she'd thought she was winning, only to realize she'd been caught in a trap of her own design. That evening, the billionaire finally spoke publicly. He stood before cameras, expression unreadable. Trust, he said, is not a feeling. It's a responsibility. When it's broken, it doesn't shatter loudly. It erodes quietly until there's nothing left to stand on. A reporter shouted a question about revenge. He shook his head. This isn't revenge. It's accountability. As the lights dimmed and the feeds cut, he felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not triumph, not grief. Clarity. He had tested love and found it hollow. But truth? Truth had shown up when he least expected it, carried on a trembling sign by someone with nothing to gain. And this time, he wasn't going to look away. The fallout didn't arrive like an explosion. It came like a tide, slow, relentless, impossible to stop once it began moving. By the third day, the billionaire's name dominated every financial network. Not for stock surges or acquisitions, but for something rarer, moral disruption. Analysts stopped talking numbers and started talking principles. Pundits argued whether integrity could even exist at that level of wealth. Social media split into camps, those praising him as a symbol of accountability, and those accusing him of calculated image control. He watched none of it. Instead, he sat in a glass-walled conference room at the foundation's temporary headquarters, sleeves rolled up, listening. The waitress, her name was Elena, stood at the whiteboard, hands still shaking slightly, but her voice steady. Whistleblowers don't stay silent because they lack evidence, she said. They stay silent because the system punishes them faster than it protects them. The billionaire leaned back, eyes fixed on her, not missing a word. NDAs, arbitration clauses, reputation threats, legal costs, Elena continued. People don't need courage lectures. They need shields. A senior legal advisor cleared his throat. And how exactly do you propose we offer that protection without turning this into a litigation magnet? Elena met his gaze. By funding defense before damage. By guaranteeing anonymity at the point of disclosure. By making retaliation more expensive than honesty. Silence followed. Then the billionaire spoke. Draft it, he said. All of it. The advisor blinked. Sir, this could cost. I know, he interrupted. That's why it works. Across the table, Elena's breath caught. She hadn't expected immediate belief, especially not from someone whose world had just burned down in public. After the meeting, she found herself alone with him in the hallway. I've never done this before, she admitted quietly. He smiled faintly. Neither have I. Outside, the press camped like predators. Cameras tracked every movement. But what the public didn't see were the calls, hundreds of them. Former executives, assistants, junior analysts, spouses, people who'd been quiet for years, now emboldened. The foundation's secure line rang nonstop. And each call chipped away at a truth the billionaire had long avoided. Betrayal wasn't rare. It was systemic. Late one night, after the staff had gone, he sat alone in his office, scrolling through old photos on his phone. Galas, vacations, smiles carefully curated for magazines. Her face appeared again and again, his former fiancée always perfectly placed, always looking like she belonged. Had any of it been real? His phone buzzed. Unknown. They're blaming me. Saying I manipulated you. He stared at the message, jaw tightening. Another followed. Unknown. I loved you. He didn't reply. Instead, he opened a new folder. Legal briefs. Asset reallocations. Trust dissolutions. Not out of spite but necessity. Trust, once broken, could not be outsourced. Meanwhile, Elena's life was unraveling in quieter ways. Her landlord recognized her from the news and offered congratulations she didn't know how to accept. Old coworkers messaged her, some proud, some bitter. One accused her of selling out. Another asked if there were jobs available at the foundation already. At night, she barely slept. She replayed the moment in the restaurant again and again. The weight of the sign in her hands. The billionaire's face when he read it. The thin line between bravery and recklessness. Had she crossed it? One afternoon, she arrived at the foundation to find security unusually tense. Staff whispered. Phones buzzed. The billionaire's chief of staff pulled her aside. We need you in conference room C now. Inside, a screen glowed. An investigative journalist filled the frame. We received anonymous documents, the journalist said, voice sharp. Claims that your foundation is a distraction, a cover for financial restructuring meant to shield assets ahead of a personal scandal. Care to respond? The billionaire folded his hands. Transparency works both ways, he said evenly. Release the documents. The journalist hesitated. All of them? Yes. Elena's heart pounded. Within minutes, the files went public. Audits, contracts, funding pathways. Everything. The journalist's tone shifted. These appear clean. They are, the billionaire replied. Because this isn't about reputation repair. It's about correction. The interview ended abruptly, but the damage or victory wasn't immediate. Hours later, a news story broke. The man his fiancée had been meeting was arrested overseas on fraud charges unrelated but damning. Investigators connected dots. Patterns emerged. She hadn't just betrayed him emotionally. She'd been a gateway. Elena watched the footage in stunned silence. That could have been catastrophic. She whispered. The billionaire nodded slowly. It almost was. For the first time since this began, anger flashed across his face, not loud, not violent, but cold. She wasn't just lying, he said. She was careless with power she didn't understand. Days later, he received a request. His former fiancée wanted to meet. Privately. Everyone advised against it. He went anyway. The meeting took place in a neutral office. No cameras. No lawyers. Hers had quit. She looked smaller somehow. No makeup. No confidence armor. I never meant for it to go this far, she said. Voice brittle. He didn't sit. You meant for it to benefit you, he replied. Tears streamed down her face. I was afraid of losing everything. You lost it the moment you treated trust like leverage. She reached for him. He stepped back. I hope you rebuild, he said. But not with me. As he walked out, something lifted, not relief, but finality. Back at the foundation, Elena waited, unaware of the meeting. She was preparing briefing notes when he entered. It's done, he said. She looked up. Everything? He nodded. Now we work. The first case funded by the foundation launched quietly. A mid-level accountant who'd exposed a multinational cover-up years earlier and paid for it with his career. Legal fees erased. Reputation restored. Settlement reached. Word spread. People who'd been silent for decades found their voices. One evening, as Elena and the billionaire reviewed reports, She asked a question that had been haunting her. Do you ever wish you hadn't known? He thought for a long moment. No, he said. I wish I'd asked sooner. Outside, the city moved on as cities always do, but inside that glass tower, something irreversible had happened. A man who thought he was testing love had uncovered a far greater truth, and the cost of learning it was still unfolding. The world did not end when the truth came out. That was the first thing the billionaire realized. Markets corrected. Headlines moved on. New scandals replaced old ones with mechanical efficiency. But beneath the surface, beneath the noise, something far more dangerous had begun to shift. Power was being questioned, not protested in the streets, not screamed into microphones. Questioned quietly by people who had never believed they were allowed to ask. And that was irreversible. The foundation grew faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, satellite offices opened in 3 cities. Anonymous tip portals flooded with testimonies, some credible, some messy, some heartbreaking. Each one was reviewed. Each one answered. The billionaire no longer sat at the head of the table. He insisted on it. I don't want a throne, he told the board. I want a system that works without me. Some thought it was humility. Others suspected guilt. The truth was simpler. He had seen how fragile authority really was when built on illusion. Elena became the foundation's public face reluctantly. She hated cameras, hated prepared statements. But when she spoke, people listened because she never sounded polished. She sounded real. At a closed-door summit, a senator asked her, "Do you understand how dangerous this is? You're destabilizing trust in institutions." Elena didn't blink. "No," she said. "I'm proving trust has to be earned." The room went silent. The billionaire watched from the back, pride mixed with unease. He had opened a door he couldn't close, and he wasn't sure what would come through next. Not everyone was grateful. Retaliation came quietly. A donor withdrew funding overnight. A media outlet ran an expose filled with half-truths and speculation. Lawsuits appeared strategic, expensive, designed to exhaust rather than win. One night, the billionaire found Elena still in the office at 2 a.m., staring at a screen full of legal threats. "You should go home," he said. She laughed softly. "You ever notice how truth doesn't sleep?" He leaned against the desk. "You didn't sign up for this." "Yes, I did," she replied. "The moment I lifted that sign." He studied her, the exhaustion, the resolve. "Then let me be clear," he said. "If this breaks you, it breaks me too." She met his eyes. "Good, then we're aligned." Months passed. Cases were won. Others failed. Not every story had a clean ending. Some whistleblowers chose silence again, even with protection. The billionaire learned something painful. You couldn't save everyone, but you could make the cost of doing the right thing survivable. One evening, he returned to the restaurant where it all began. Same tables, same lighting, different staff. He sat alone. A waitress approached, nervous. "Can I get you something?" He smiled. "Just water," she hesitated. "You're him, right?" He nodded. She swallowed. "My sister saw what happened here. She's in accounting. She quit her job last week. Was she being hurt?" He asked gently. "Yes." Then she made the right choice. The waitress exhaled, relief flooding her face. "Thank you." As she walked away, he realized something else. Courage was contagious. The final reckoning came quietly. A federal investigation long dormant was reopened using information the foundation had protected, not publicized. Executives resigned. Boards dissolved. Settlements were reached behind closed doors. His former fiancée was subpoenaed. She called him once. He didn't answer. Not out of spite, but closure. On the 1-year anniversary of the night at the restaurant, Elena stood on a small stage at the foundation's headquarters. No press, Just staff. Survivors. She held the same sign she'd once raised in silence. Now, she spoke. I was just a waitress, she said. I had no plan, no backup. Just a moment where I couldn't stay quiet anymore. She looked at the billionaire in the front row. He could have ignored me, destroyed me, paid me off. She paused. He listened. Applause filled the room, not thunderous, but deep. The billionaire didn't clap immediately. His throat tightened. When it was over, Elena joined him outside. Do you ever miss who you were? She asked. He considered the question carefully. I miss the simplicity, he said. Not the ignorance, she nodded. Same. They stood there, watching the city lights flicker, millions of lives intersecting, colliding, hiding truths and revealing them. People think this story is about betrayal, Elena said quietly. It's not? He asked. She shook her head. It's about what happens when someone ordinary refuses to play along. He smiled faintly. And what happens when someone powerful finally listens? Somewhere, another waitress would face a moment of choice. Another billionaire would believe they were untouchable. Another truth would wait, trembling for permission to exist, and because of one sign, one table, one act of defiance, the silence would never be quite as safe again.